I'm David, CEO and co-founder of Trawa, and I'm super excited to be here today at my first ever time at Slush in Helsinki. Thanks so much for being here. I'm here today to talk to you about Trawa, what we do, a B2B energy company based in Berlin, Germany, and we are working on really saving small and medium-sized enterprises in Europe from what can only be described as way too high energy cost. Who here knows what happened in energy markets in 2022? Please raise your hand if you know what happened in energy markets in 2022. It's not that many, actually. Okay, so in 2022, Putin invaded the Ukraine, as you all know, and gas prices exploded, and electricity prices exploded along with that. So I'm here today to talk to you about what happened, but also about what we do at Trawa to help European small and medium-sized enterprises essentially survive and become more competitive in a world where energy costs are way too high. So let's talk about the problem. The problem is now quite well known, actually, and the problem is that in Europe, especially in countries like Germany, energy costs are way too high if you compare them to other geographies like the US or China. In fact, they have come down quite a bit since the crisis in 2022, but they still remain roughly twice as high as the energy costs in countries like the US or China. So the interesting fact about this is that large global enterprises have dealt with buying and managing energy for a long time because they spend hundreds of millions, if not billions, every year on energy. But small and medium-sized enterprises, before the crisis of 2022, they didn't really deal with this topic as much. Energy procurement was seen as not so strategically important. So as you can imagine, when the energy crisis happened, most weren't prepared for it. And now the interesting thing is that European small and medium-sized enterprises face what we call a growing and diverse set of energy-related challenges. And we're going to talk about a few of those today. First, decision makers, so mostly the managing directors or the procurement directors, face severe uncertainty because of the very high volatility, both short-term and long-term, in regards to prices. Second, the already high electricity cost is made even worse by the fact that the grid fees continue to rise and the electricity taxes do too. It's so extreme, especially in Germany, where we are from, that the government now needs to step in and actually subsidize these electricity taxes and grid fees. Three, European companies not only need to decarbonize, but they also need to reduce energy costs at the same time, which is really a struggle. And then four, most of the small and medium-sized enterprises don't actually have anyone to deal with electricity procurement and electricity management. It's typically in the procurement department or with the CFO or managing director himself. Number five is actually more an interesting fact, and it's the fact that there is now more and more demand by a new wave of companies, data center providers, AI companies, robotics companies, that are adding obviously even more demand and pressure onto the already quite congested energy grid and energy market. And in our point of view, this creates a very unique challenge, because today, small and medium-sized enterprises face a complex puzzle of standalone products and services that are both really hard to assemble, but then also don't really work together properly, even if you try to buy everything uniquely from separate providers. And on this slide, you can see in the background some puzzle pieces flying around. And if you look at some of those, you'll see, for example, the old school supply tariff, so perhaps a fixed price tariff that they used to buy from their local municipal electricity provider, or perhaps on the bottom, energy infrastructure like on-site assets such as rooftop solar systems. And in the past, this was perfectly fine, that nothing really spoke to each other, but the energy markets have developed quite a lot, and now things need to be connected. And that's why we are building what we aim to hopefully soon call Europe's leading B2B clean energy platform. And for the first time ever, we are offering small and medium-sized enterprises something that could be called a holistic solution. And it starts with the supply tariff. It starts with replacing the existing incumbent utility tariff and offering them the professional way of buying electricity on wholesale spot markets, but also directly from wind and solar parks in their country. And then we combine that with an energy management software that provides them actionable insights in regards to their data. And number three, we help them flexibilize. And flexibilization is actually the new gold, so to speak. It refers to changing your consumption patterns in a way so that you no longer consume electricity when it's super expensive, but rather when it's actually quite cheap. Now, what are the benefits of this solution? For our customers, the first benefit is that they don't even need to pay anything up front. So there's not necessarily CapEx investment requirement. And since we take care of all of it, they also don't need to invest a lot of time. The most important factor is probably the fact that if they onboard onto the whole solution, they can save up to 30% annually of their electricity cost. But they can also very effectively hedge against market price risk. So if the next crisis comes along, they are up to 80% protected. And finally, all of this can be done while using electricity from local domestic renewable electricity plants such as wind and solar. Now let's take a closer look at the actual products. As I said, it all starts with the electricity tariff. In the past, businesses used to buy, like you guys probably do, relatively simple fixed price tariffs or perhaps bought on the spot market. But now that's changing because we enable small and medium-sized enterprises to employ quite sophisticated professional solutions that in the past only the very large enterprises have used. For example, we connect them to wind and solar plants. Our energy management software comes along with that utility tariff, so they don't even need to pay for it. And this energy management software is really a suite of analytics modules that gives them insights that are actionable, not just regarding their energy consumption, but also regarding their cost and their CO2 emissions, so all things energy. And finally, what we call flexibility as a service is where we help them discover and then really use flexibility or add more flexibility. So for example, we're really doubling down on on-site batteries at the moment. So we are helping customers understand whether batteries make sense for them or not. And then with partners, we can actually help them acquire batteries. And once they are there, we can integrate them into a holistic on-site energy system and trade the flexibility and the capacity of those batteries. Now, the reason we can do that is because our systems solve two key challenges for our customers. The first and most important one is the fact that what I've described without a holistic solution would be way too complex for most businesses. But we take the complexity out and we turn it into one seamless customer journey. And the second thing is that since we are integrated and since we are closely integrated between supply, manage, and flex, we can actually generate twice as much savings as they would be able to generate from standalone solutions, even if they manage to actually get those and then to get those kind of working with each other. Now, we built all of the technology from scratch. So we've built both the customer-facing technology and the internal platforms that we use. For example, the AI optimization engine that helps us automatically generate our offers. Let's talk about where we stand today. It's only the end of our second year as a fully live and operational utility, but we are already live in Germany and Austria, and we now serve roughly 200 companies in all sorts of industries at several thousand locations. So some of our largest sectors are manufacturing and assembly, as you might have guessed, but we also work in all kinds of sectors. So like the railroad sector, real estate, property management companies, the restaurant business, large chains, hotels, really anything that you can think of that has a lot of electricity, we can help them reduce their cost. And we are growing quite a lot. Let's jump ahead, because the market is gigantic. We are talking about one of the biggest markets out there. Energy is huge. And in fact, the sector that we are addressing, we call it the medium sector, is really the single largest. It's larger than the small businesses and households combined. And in terms of their spend, it's also larger than the large enterprises in Europe. And interestingly enough, it's a market that has long been underserved, simply because as you might know, if you've ever had to deal with small businesses, they are actually quite demanding of their service providers. Now, we're also going to jump ahead here and talk a little bit about what we have planned. At Trawa, what we are currently focused on is scaling the business. So as I said before, the market is really big, but we want to grow because we're only really scratching the surface. So we are hiring across a lot of functions, especially commercial. So if you know anyone, please let me know. But also in operations and customer success, in product and in engineering. We're based in Berlin and we're office first. So if you know anyone who might be interested, please let me know. But we're also looking to double down on our product strategy and improve our products both in energy management software and in flexibility. And then finally, we're going to start preparing pan-European expansion. So by 2027, we aim to be live in the first non-German speaking country and to therefore continue growing the journey. That was all for now. I'm going to be here today and tomorrow, and I'd be really excited to connect with anyone who's interested in discussing how we could perhaps jointly redefine B2B energy in Europe. Thanks so much.